Hello, back again on the Top Recap channel. This time I will tell a movie's entitled Wolves. Let's get straight into the storyline. The story begins with a female official named Margaret, who looks panicked after her young partner dies after falling from a hotel bed. She dials a number given to her by a close friend. The number belongs to someone who is said to be very professional, a problem solver who can solve any problem that cannot be solved by others.
I was told that if I ever needed help, serious help, to say, there's only one man in the city who can do what you do. And that one man is you.
How will you know it's me? This is how you'll know it's me.
The person's name was John. He was a problem solver, a professional expert, and a crime scene cleaner who claimed to be the only one in the world who could solve all problems. Upon arriving at Margaret's room, John immediately examines the body of her young partner to confirm his death.
That's good.
After confirming this, John, like a true professional, approaches Margaret to calm her down and devises a fake scenario to make it look like she was never there.
You're home. You're sitting on the couch. You're watching TV with Julia.
Thank you.
Margaret also revealed that she still found it hard to believe that people with professions like John existed in the world. John immediately replied that this kind of work is rare, confidential, requires special abilities, and only certain circles can contact him. Shortly after, they both heard someone knocking from outside. John asked Margaret to remain calm and open the door quietly. However, who would have thought that the person was Nick, someone sent by the hotel owner to help solve this problem? Unbeknownst to Margaret and John, the hotel owner was watching them through a small camera mounted on the ceiling. While the three were still confused, the hotel owner called. He revealed that Nick was the person he hired to handle this problem, which means John was not the only professional on the job.
Point. That is a fair point. Well, I hardly think you're in a position to be negotiating anything.
The hotel owner insists that his hotel is new, and he doesn't want his reputation to be ruined by this kind of controversy. And since John and Nick are already there, the only way to solve this problem is to work together to care for the body.
We have decided that the only course of action is for you both to work together to clean up this absolute fucking clusterfuck of a mess.
Despite his initial resistance and desire to leave, after Margaret reminds him of the little camera's existence, John has no choice. Similarly, Nick, who had been paid in full, had no other option but to cooperate.
If you don't finish the job, she's got you. A camera. So, now what?
After everything was agreed upon, Margaret was asked to go home with a change of clothes. Incidentally, John and Nick had prepared a change of clothes as part of their work procedures. As soon as Margaret left, John, eager to get the job done, immediately tidied up the young man's body for transport. However, when he saw Nick sitting around drinking a soda, John was annoyed and reprimanded him.
I was giving you the benefit of the doubt, letting you clean up unsupervised.
Nick firmly explains that John's job is to solve Margaret's problem. That includes the body of the young man, who must be disposed of immediately. Meanwhile, Nick's job is to ensure John gets the job done.
Supervise. Thanks.
While John was busy working, Nick accidentally saw a bag behind the desk.
Oh, shit.
When they looked through the bag, they found several packets of drugs belonging to the young man.
Oh, shit.
The discovery was clearly going to be a serious problem that troubled them both. The hotel owner told Nick and John to dispose of the drugs. However, it wasn't as easy as one might think, as there was a chance that someone, whether it was the mafia or a drug kingpin, would be looking for the drugs.
Could have been a tracker in there.
Tracker? Don't think they'd already be here if there was a...
As the matter was outside of their work, Nick and John were reluctant to deal with it. However, the hotel owner threatened to use their video footage again, leaving them no choice. From then on, John and Nick had to work together to discover the drug's owner. The first step, of course, was to dispose of the young man's body. They had to take it to the car park and wrap it up as neatly as possible to avoid being spotted. John, who still considers himself the world's only professional, decided to go with his methods. After packing up the young man's body, John and Nick went down to the parking lot using the lift. To avoid being seen by security, Nick cut some wires to turn off the CCTV cameras, and when the security guard went to the back to check the cables. At that moment, John quickly put the young man's body into the trunk of his car. However, just as they were arguing, suddenly, the young man came back to life.
Yeah. Fuck you, who am I? Who are you? Some old bagman? Some old cleaner? Seen too many movies.
You okay? All good. Yep.
Nick immediately came up with his theory that the young man wasn't actually dead. He just looked like he had died from the drugs he had consumed. Perhaps the drugs made his heart beat slower, making him appear dead.
Didn't check his pulse? Fuck you, I didn't check his pulse. He didn't have a fucking pulse.
And yet,
The fact that the young man was still alive made it easier for them to find out who the owner of the drugs was. The next step was to wake the young man up from the drugs and interrogate him until he revealed who the owner was. After that, they planned to kill him, dispose of his body, and return the drugs to their owner. That way, their work for the night would be done. And to sober the young man up, they needed an expert doctor. John, who still felt he was the most powerful and senior, claimed to have an exclusive acquaintance. However, this acquaintance was difficult to contact.
My car, my guy.
and take it right out of the exit. They'll take
I know how to get to Chinatown.
Finally, they decided to go to Nick's acquaintance, who claimed to be an exclusive expert doctor. Arriving at the location, John was surprised that the exclusive doctor Nick referred to was the same person.
You didn't pick up. Shit.
Let's call her the doctor, a medical expert specializing in the criminal world. They immediately asked for the doctor's help to examine and sober the young man from the influence of drugs.
Must have been some bad combination or something extremely pure.
How many clowns you got running through this joint?
Now it's really not the time.
No?
And you pick up on a...
Okay, both of you out now. Out!
However, when examined, the young man ran away. John and Nick immediately chased after the young man. Because the young man ran quickly, they decided to catch him in two directions. Nick chased him by running, while John used a car to intercept from the opposite direction. Just as Nick managed to lead the young man in the desired direction, John appeared with his speeding car. Miraculously, the young man landed perfectly unharmed. Thanks to the drugs still flowing in his blood, he continued to run without fatigue, forcing John and Nick to be more patient in chasing him. After a grueling chase, the young man was caught and put into a car. They brought him back to the doctor's place for interrogation. Unfortunately, the doctor refused to help. John and Nick had no other choice but to find another place to continue the interrogation. They finally chose a cheap motel that was often used by low-class criminals. Nick and John then rented a room specifically for interrogation.
Sit down.
The young man was named Kid, claiming to be a final-year student. He claimed he was just helping his friend deliver drugs to a certain location. However, they were confused since John and Nick had no experience in interrogation.
Talk, asshole.
Can I talk to you in the hall just for a minute? What the fuck you think you're doing? So what's the next movie? Really? Why not?
Where'd you get the fucking gun? Asshole! LaGrange! They call him LaGrange!
However, after a long process, Kid finally confessed that he was only asked by his close friend to deliver the goods. Instead of going straight to the destination, Kid, who had never tried drugs in his life, secretly tasted a little. It made him feel cool and confident. Instead of going straight to the location, he went to one of the bars in a hotel where he accidentally met a woman named Margaret who turned out to be an official. Kid himself forgot how he managed to melt Margaret's heart, but the point is that Margaret immediately invited him to one of the hotel rooms there. In that room, Kid accidentally fell off the bed until he was unconscious. When Nick and John asked where the drop-off point was, Kid said he didn't know. The only one who knows is his best friend, who said he left a pager, an ancient communication device, at work. Nick and John again asked where his best friend worked and left the pagers. Kid replied that his best friend worked at a club called Club Ice, which was also frequented by important guests from the Mafia. On the way to Club Ice, Kid talks about himself. He said he was about to graduate from university and wanted to work in an office. Not only that, Kid also discusses Nick and John, who he considers partners because of the same style of appearance, gestures, and way of speaking, so Kid thinks they have been working together for a long time. Arriving at Club Ice, Nick and John see someone they recognize. They immediately ducked their heads so as not to be spotted. As it turned out, Club Ice was a nightclub frequented by the Croatian gang, where Nick and John had worked for them. If the Croatian gang saw them working together, it would be a big problem. The reason is that their jobs as professional problem solvers require them to maintain client confidentiality. Clients only know that Nick and John work alone and are not tied to any party. If the Croatian gang's boss saw them together, he might think they were a plot that could threaten the gang's business or crime.
There is an expectation of discretion in our line of work, kind of monasticism. Same.
Actually, it was easy for Nick and John. They just had to wait in the car while Kid went in to get the pagers and came out again. However, Nick and John did not trust Kid, worried that he would run away. On the other hand, Nick and John also distrusted each other until they finally chose the difficult and risky way, which was to go inside together but still keep their distance so as not to be spotted by the Croatian gang boss.
I'm gonna pray to Christ that Dimitri doesn't see you and me together.
Dumbest, most dangerous plan.
Inside the place, Kid found the pagers he was looking for lying on the table. However, as it was very noisy inside and the bartender was unwilling to help him, Kid was desperate to enter the bar's interior. This action got him arrested and expelled from the place. At the same time, the event at the club switched to traditional dancing and left Nick and John trapped among the dancers. As a result, the Croatian gang boss became aware of their presence. To trick the Croatian gang boss, Nick and John pretended to point a gun at each other as if they didn't know each other. The boss quickly separated the two, explaining they were professionals in their field.
Everyone calm down.
The boss really didn't expect that they would meet by chance.
You two offer not dissimilar services.
However, since John and Nick were still pretending to have a dispute, the boss told his men to get them out of the club.
I got a job to do.
Oh, I see. The professional.
Shortly after the two left, the boss's bald-headed Croatian aide realized Nick and John were using the same type of pistol. Outside, Nick told John to go to the car first because he worried Kid would run away. However, Kid apparently complied and was waiting in the car. Long story short, they are now in a fast food restaurant with Kid. From his attitude, it is clear that Kid does not dare to mess around or fight back. Kid might have run away earlier if Kid wasn't a good person. However, the Kid still followed their orders. Seeing his innocence, Nick and John begin to feel sympathy for Kid. When Kid goes to the toilet, John and Nick discuss that they eventually have to kill Kid. Honestly, John admitted he didn't want to do it. Neither did Nick, who was also reluctant to get his hands dirty. John has an assumption that sometimes a job will take care of itself. He was sure that the group receiving the drugs would most likely not let Kid out alive. In other words, they just needed to get Kid to the drop-off location and let the job take care of itself.
I know what that feels.
Shortly after, the pagers beeped, containing a message about the drop-off point.
Did it go off? Oh my god, I thought we were dead.
Without wasting time, they went straight to the location. Upon arrival, Kid innocently asks John and Nick to wait for him in the car until he finishes delivering the goods. Of course, John and Nick would wait in the car, but not to wait for Kid to return, but to make sure he didn't get out of that place alive. As John predicted, another mafia group came to ambush, so there would certainly be bloodshed there. Just as John and Nick were about to leave to avoid the conflict, 3 Croatian gang members who were sent by their boss to kill John and Nick suddenly appeared.
You're not wolves! You're bodies!
They were forced to leave the car to retrieve the weapons in the trunk. In less than a minute, John and Nick finished all 3. Now, all they have to do is ensure the death of Kid, who was caught in the middle of the bloodshed. However, when they went inside to make sure, it turned out Kid was still alive after hiding in the car's trunk, complete with his belongings still intact. In other words, John or Nick had to kill Kid to get the job done.
Finish the job.
However, instead of shooting Kid, Nick shoots a packet of drugs that turns out to contain a tracking device. They decide to keep Kid alive on the condition that he must not tell what happened that night.
You have blood on your sweater. Fucker.
To ensure Kid kept his mouth shut, Nick and John drove him home to find his address. They also met Kid's father in person and threatened him a little so that his son would not do anything wrong.
Want to grab some breakfast?
The next morning, Nick and John spend time at a coffee shop.
Lucky fucker. Yeah.
As John is about to leave, he suddenly remembers something very important. John recalled that Margaret once claimed to have his phone number from someone she claimed to be a close friend. The same thing happened with the hotel owner, who got Nick's number from another source. John began to think, what if all night's chaos was intended to eliminate them? What if the person wanted them dead for knowing too much information and secrets of important people? That theory was proven correct when the coffee shop suddenly emptied, and outside appeared several armed men ready to attack them. There is no other choice. Nick and John must work together again for their life.
Ready?
Yeah.
At the end of the story, we are shown the hotel's CCTV footage before the incident. Interestingly, a hidden camera in their room shows everything they do, including when Kid falls off the bed. This confirms that someone has set everything up, which will probably be revealed in the next film.